Well, hello everybody. It's Mystery Monday, and what a beautiful way for our week to begin. I know we are in the evening already, just about, but I know Bryce is in the morning. So, good, beautiful morning from Morné, myself, Bryce, and guys, I cannot tell you, do you not think Morné looks hot? Hot, hot. Check out the new hairstyle. I gotta tell
Thank
you,
you.
I love it. Looks very, very cool. Or hot. You look cool, you look hot. Either, either is good, right?
Thank,
I love it. I
thank
think it's
you.
so great. It's so great.
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah.
I love it too. It's just nice to feel the wind in my ears again.
I bet you when you look like that and when you have hair like that, it's like you have not aged a day in 12 years. So I love it and really cool. Anyway, I just had to give Monet's hairdo a little shout out there.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
guys and gals, it's exciting times. So before we talk about Suicide Forest, okay, which of course Bryce and Stephanie's not here today, unfortunately. She's got something else and couldn't get online. But if you're watching Stephanie, we're missing you, honey. But next week she'll be back.
Well, the host
So
costumes for her next week. She comes back.
yeah, exactly. But before we talk about Suicide Forest, Bryce has actually organized with her channel Esoteric Atlanta the Shadow Work Challenge, a 30-day challenge, which I know a lot of your viewers have already signed up for.
And you'll
400 people, guys, have signed up for this 30-day Shadow Work Challenge. So let Aquarius Rising Africa kick ass and let us sign up as well, okay?
well, y'all are on it. I got you guys on that
I
challenge.
want to say we can have a competition about how many guys. I'm putting my neck out on the line here, right? Okay, I'm seriously putting my neck out here. I'm going to say, Aquarius Rising viewers, I want to challenge Esoteric Atlantis. Esoteric Atlantis.
Atlantis, maybe that's 2.0. Will be maybe that was a God slip.
This is the most crazy thing. I literally hit a blank. I was like, Atlantis. No, that's not Atlantic. Atlantis.
Well, Atlantis was named after Atlantis, so that might be the next channel. Might be Esoteric Atlantis.
Okay. From Esoteric Atlantis. We've just renamed your channel, Bryce. Clearly, it was a higher force in play here, but that's hilarious because it was so funny. I literally hit the blank. Anyway, so I want to say Aquarius Rising Africa, we've got to like kick ass with those Yanks, okay? We've got to get more people on this challenge. I love it.
I have so many. Let me pause because before I forget, I've had a lot of people from like Australia, South Africa emailing me going, "Oh my God, our time difference is so far apart. Is it okay if I start a day early or a day late?" I'm like, "That's totally fine, boo. Like the fact that you're even doing this is unbelievable." So yes, South Africans, join us. Let's do this.
Come on, we're doing it. And it really is amazing because I know that not only Bryce, but Stephanie, as well as Catherine, and I think your friend Emmy, right? Is there anyone else? Morné and myself as well?
I think that's the participating channels. I'll have to look. I think that's, if I'm forgetting someone, I apologize. But yeah, it's you, it's Aquarius Rising Africans, and Solution by Aquarius Rising Africa, myself, Stephanie, Emmy, Holistic Genie with Emmy, and Catherine Edwards. We are all the participating challenges. And so you're going to see links because there is a lot of different, and I want to say this too, I don't want people to be overwhelmed as you go through the challenge. There's going to be more and more and more things to do. You're going to get the sound bowl healing, which is something that Shanti really specializes in. We're going to, there's going to be some meditation stuff as well as the exercise. And I want to express this because I know how I am as a type A personality, Vata person. If a day goes by where you miss one of the activities, don't quit. Just get up the next day and start again. Okay, this is not, we're doing this. This is for you to heal yourself. And the only way we can heal the world is if we start with ourselves. And so that is what this is about. And I don't care if you are an athlete or not. It doesn't effing matter. It doesn't matter. I don't, I'm going to say this too. And I know Shanti can probably speak about this. I tell my yoga students all the time, ugly yoga is the best yoga. Pretty yoga is boring. It's boring. But the ugly yoga, that's where it's interesting. So with those places in the workouts where you're struggling a little bit, don't run from that. That's where it's interesting. That's where that resistance is giving you information. Now, can we talk about one thing, Shanti, that somebody emailed me last night about? And I thought this was a really good question. So I'm going to paraphrase what this person asked me. When dealing with shadow work, when these uncomfortable emotions start to arise, when the anger, the hurt, a lot of times as human beings, we immediately want to run from it. We want to go turn the TV on, or open up a beer, or go shopping on Amazon to avoid that. So this person kind of asked about what is supposed to happen when we lean into these emotions. And I want to say, first of all, when you're leaning into an uncomfortable emotion, acknowledge that it is going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be fun. And also, I want to tell you that you don't have to have all the answers right away. If you just need a moment to cry, then you cry. And I want you to know that that's not, I know Shanti can speak more on this too. That's when you hit those rocks, that stuck energy. I use Shanti's example a lot about the hair. When I was a little girl, my hair is really thick. My mother would call it a rat's nest when it would get really tangled in the wind from playing. And she'd have to take that brush and brush through it, to get the, but that's what we're doing. We're taking stuck energy and we're starting to brush through it to unstick it, right? It's like a rolling stone gathers no moss. So we're starting to roll the body and open the body up to move through that moss. And it's not a wham, bam, thank you, man. It's not, some things might be healed right away. You might make a realization and boom, it's healed. But there's other layers of other issues that are going to take time. And I want you guys to all be patient with yourself. When you learn to have compassion for yourself in those hard moments, that's when you learn how to then have compassion for other people. And know that this is not about you being, I told the example, my teacher, when he was in Miami in 2016, was making so much fun of us for putting handstand pictures on Instagram. And he was like, have you seen Cirque du Soleil? I've seen 8 times. They do it better. They do it. Why are you showing your pictures? They do it better. You're just a yoga student. And so your body, your beautiful body, is this beautiful GPS system to show you so the soul can know itself. And someone said, I'm a little overweight, I'm going to be sore. Fantastic. Then you have something to work with. That's great. You have a great, what's the point in doing something if you have nothing to work with? So all these things you see as obstacles are actually just puzzles. That's all they are, puzzles. So I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add to that to make people feel a little bit more comfortable about being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I agree with what you say. That was going to be the first thing that I was going to say as well, is that when you do this, when you start this challenge, it's not pretty, okay? Understand that healing is not a pretty thing. That's why it's called healing. But also understand that healing doesn't mean you're broken or you're wounded. Healing simply means to bring yourself back into balance. Mm-hmm. Any dis-ease in the body, dis-ease or disease, is a dis-ease. The body is not at ease. So it simply really just has to get back into balance. So yes, rest assured, those shitty emotions are going to surface. That's the objective of this challenge, right? And understand that every time that happens, and as you quite correctly say, Bryce, you don't run away from it. Take your journal, write. Take a walk on the beach. Take a walk in the ocean. Take a walk around the block. Clear your head. Remember, it's not about the other person, ever. Yeah. You might think it is, and you might want to react to the other person or the situation, but that person or situation is only a reflection of what's happening inside of you. That's the first thing I want to say to you guys. In this situation, life is always about the learner, teacher, teacher, learner. And this is what I teach in my first alchemy course. We go to understand the learner, teacher, teacher, learner. that everything in life is teaching and learning, learning and teaching. So every experience is learning experience and a teaching experience. So instead of reacting to it in the way that you normally would, or that your mother would, or your father would, and you just think it's in your genes that you've got to be ill, or whatever the case might be, that's not true. Your body is designed to heal itself. Your emotions will heal your body. Your emotions will heal your mind. Your emotions and your thoughts will heal your body. So we start with the invisible stuff along with the visible stuff. So you have to support your body physically. If you're drinking 6 liters of Coca-Cola a day, you might want to start maybe having 2 liters and 4 liters of water. So we just start changing the process on that level as well. So you know what you're doing that is not serving you. Gently just start changing little things that you know are going to serve you better. And every time that shitty feeling comes up, welcome it. I say welcome it. Even though you're nauseous and you want to throw up and you want to hate the world right now, welcome that feeling. It means you're healing. Take your journal, scribble, write, draw, be frustrated in this process. And I also want to point out that we do work with children as well as teenagers. So if you guys have got kids that you maybe want to do the same thing, kids you got to work with slightly differently, similar but slightly differently. So if you guys have got kids, and especially teenagers, we have teenage programs as well. So, teenagers are having a really rough time right now. So, if you want to do something like your kids, speak to us. We can help them. It's really all just about us all doing this together. But start with yourself, because that's really where it has to begin.
Yeah, we're all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. And I want to, on that note too, I want to say as well so that's why on this, if you're doing the challenge, that's why I send you all the 30 days beforehand. It's just a template. So I put a lot of different exercise modalities, because this, even though like we're yoga people, you can use the body in like bar, kickboxing, whatever, in different ways to experience different openings. And so if for some reason, let's say like kickboxing is too much for you right now, when we do the kickboxing day, replace it with a yoga or a bar. That's okay. You don't have to stick to the exact template that I had somebody, you guys, this is so exciting. I had somebody email me last night. Their 80-year-old parents are doing this challenge, and they're going to modify the exercises to their needs. And I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. I have someone that's already is doing like water aerobics. I told her just to replace the exercises I suggested with water aerobics then. You don't, if something is not on that I've given, the reason why I have so many different exercise modalities is for you to find what works for you. And so if one isn't working for you, then try the other one and see what happens. Okay. And same, I always tell people too, like so anger, a lot of times the anger that comes up is like really suppressed hurt. And so I know that people will sometimes, I've told people to do this, especially if you live in a city like me. Maybe if you live in the middle of nowhere, you can do that. Just go outside and scream. Grab a pillow, go sit in your car, lock your door, and scream into a pillow if you have to. Right?
Yeah.
Just make sure no one else can see you, because you might have the psych ward show up to pick you up. But, I know a trauma therapist who told someone I know in trauma therapy to go and purchase like a cheap dog bed, or an old dog, no dog, just the bed, and get a bat, like a toy bat. And every time they feel like they need to just let out aggression, just take the bat and hit the bed. And that's it. No one else is around. You're not projecting it. And then when they would do this exercise, the person would end up in tears. So that exercise was allowing that emotion to release. And that's what that's why I added kickboxing in. I don't do kickboxing. Isn't
it also like that's why you have a lot of these boxing bags, I think. I remember my son had one as a kiddie. Just that was hanging in the garage.
Yes.
And whenever he was frustrated, he would go and punch that bag, which is an amazing form of just releasing, and especially for boys.
Yes.
Boys need a man, and men need a much more of a physical release oftentimes, and women as well. I'm not discarding women, because many times we women, we keep our emotions pent up. Men do too. We just release them differently. So it's very good to then just, if you want to scream and whatever, do so in the car.
Yes, well, I know a lot of women in my life who have been like RAPE'd or, you know, touched inappropriately, and they felt powerless, and the kickboxing is what like helped them find that. And I've said before, you can't feel powerful until you first felt powerless, right? That polarity, that friction, and the kickboxing, the self-defense is what gave them that healing back, to take that power back that was once taken. So a lot of women might find that the kickboxing that I give you will really work for me. My anger comes out in different ways. So that's why I don't really do kickboxing, but everybody's different. And you're right. And I want to say, before we get into this, when we look at karma is just action reaction. It's just your work. We have 3 karmas that all of us are working with. We have our own karma, our own work from this life and past lives. We have collective karma, which, holy crap, what a time to be living in, with our collective schoolwork we're all doing right now in the world. And then we have inherited karma. And so we're talking about the issues that lie in your DNA that you've inherited from your ancestors. So sometimes when these emotions come up, you're not going to know specifically. If you can't pinpoint them back to a story, then forget about the story. The story doesn't matter. What matters is working with that emotion and releasing it and healing it, if that makes sense, right? Even when I was in trauma therapy, my therapist would tell me, if I couldn't remember why I was feeling a certain way, she'd be like, it doesn't matter why. The point is you are. And so that's what we have to work on healing. So let go of the story. Let go of any type of limitation, obstacles, puzzles. Yeah.
The story is the drama, you know, it's the drama. And what happens is we oftentimes tend to get caught up in the drama. Yeah. And then that's where we get lost. But you're going to see, let's say the underlying issue in your life is rejection. You know, so you're going to see that there's rejection in 3 or 4 or 10 situations. So it doesn't matter about the people that rejected you. It was about you. That's the common denominator in your own life that has experienced rejection several times. So the opposite of rejection is acceptance. So your challenge would be to come to that place of self-love and self-acceptance. Yeah. So, and how do we do that? It's difficult to say, because each person is individual. So this is what these challenges are about, because it's not about how do I achieve that? It doesn't matter. That will come of itself when you do the interior work, when you do the challenge, the dissolving, the reconnecting.
Yeah, so, the answers will come when they need to come.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before we move to the story, guys, I want to tell you my favorite exercise that I'm going to have you guys do. And it's like, I think it's like week 3 or something. You're doing this exercise. A lot of times in shadow work, we are looking at like the darker side of ourselves, the shadow side of ourselves. And we know that when we're with people, what pisses us off about other people is usually a reflection of ourselves that's pissing us off. Well, in one of the exercises, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you write a letter to someone in your life, your personal life, that you admire a lot and love a lot. I'm going to have you write a letter to that person and tell that person how much you love them, what you love about them, how you admire them. You can sign the letter or not. You can mail it to them. I want you to handwrite it, not type it, handwrite it. And then once you send that letter off, what you're going to do is you're going to go back and realize through some journal work that everything you loved about that person is actually aspects of yourself. So it's not just the dark stuff you're going to be exploring. It's also going to be the sides of you that you ignore, because a lot of times we ignore the things about ourselves that we actually like. And so we put it on another person, say, well, that person's just so great. That person's just so beautiful. Or that person's just such a great light. No, that's your own light reflecting off of that person. And so when we look at our weaknesses, we're also going to look at our strengths as well. And so every time, I'm just so proud. Every time I get on my email, I have tons more emails of people wanting to do this. And I'm so excited, guys. I have a support group opened on Signal. So it's EA Shadow Work support group where it's a private, so you can join that support group on Signal on your cell phone. So you can talk to each other all over the world, help each other through this. I'm going to have moderators. So if any trolls get in, we'll just kick them out. You know, so if you need support, there you go. So any questions too, feel free to just email me and ask me. And yeah, that's about it, guys. So exciting.
Yay. Nice little challenge coming up for us just before December, Christmas, all these lovely things. So let's get ourselves moving, ready for 2023. Because
and what's
who
it
knows
Rob
what's going to happen.
Rob Doss says, if you think you're so enlightened, go spend a week with your family. So it's a perfect time.
Yeah, exactly.
Us Americans have Thanksgiving, and I actually write to the non-Americans like, observe this from your American friends, because you got Christmas coming, and we know families. No one can trigger us like our family. So
exactly. Oh gosh, yeah.
Perfect time.
So. Anyway, on that beautiful note, let me not do hand signals in case I get doing all sorts of dodgy things again. Listen, you know you've hit the big time when someone goes to the trouble of doing a 30-minute hit piece on you.
Listen,
you've hit the big time.
I mean, listen. You are living rent free in their head. Look at you. You are living rent free in their head.
And I'm loving that. I don't like to pay rent as it is. So I like it when people can give me rent free space.
I mean, but that's the thing, I actually was just before we got on, I was working on one of the installments of this, and they were talking about the true teachings of Yahshua. And you guys, according to the missing books of the Bible, the true teachings of Yahshua, what we're talking about, it's the shadow work. Magdalene says that if you want to heal the world, heal yourself. That's why the controllers don't want us doing this, is because
and also, I mean, when we look at what a book I read a lot, and I know we've spoken about it before, is the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. That's my Bible. And I promise you it is incredible. And he talks in there about, there we go, you got it. And he talks about going into the creepy dungeons and the darkness and the creepy meeting the creatures of the night, so to speak. But at the end of the day, that's in your mind. However, we shall.
You're your own alcohol. Yep. So
we shall. I would love to. In fact, I actually wanna do a book, not a book review, but a book club type thing on that book, because I think, it's really incredible. The information in there is phenomenal. However, let us move on to today's topic, because as always we have such fun, don't we? Just jabbering away. And BRICE, so tell us about Suicide Forest. Oh my God, that sounds
awful.
Absolutely horrific.
It's so macabre, because when I'm doing this research, part of me is like fascinated by these interesting places.
Sorry, I just want to, Muriel, it's the Aquarian Gospel of, hang on, I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to put it in the comments. Okay. Let me just do that quick. The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ by Levi. Here we go.
She says thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome. That is a really beautiful, in fact, that book came to me when my fiance was killed. And that was like many years ago now. And it was through, I don't want to go into that too much now because it's a long story how it got there. But anyway, it came to me as the true teachings of Jesus. So it also talks about the missing years where he was, because basically in that book we cover where Jesus was in the missing years of the Bible. Basically, where did he go? So this talks about the years that he was gone, where he went to Egypt, India, Tibet, Persia, and Greece. So he spent time learning from the masters and the teachers there. And it's very, very interesting. It sort of goes in line with what you're saying. It doesn't give the detail you're giving, but it definitely goes in line with what you're saying. And for me, that makes perfect sense. So let's talk about this dreadful forest and maybe send some happy vibes there.
Well,
So
I
that
can't wait to hear y'all's opinions and hear everybody else's opinions, because we know that the truth is often stranger than fiction. And it's, as I'm researching these things, like, it's not lost on me how many people have lost their lives, you know, and I feel so heartbroken. If there is something nefarious happening that's pulling people in, of course, I feel heartbroken. And I also have to remind myself that, you know, when we do more of our own inner work, we realize that all these obstacles in our life, including removing ourselves, is oftentimes something we agree to learn from in some way. I know that might sound harsh, but there's always a lesson in everything, and our soul is what's eternal. Our body is the expression of the soul, and it's a beautiful instrument, but it's not eternal. It's our soul that's eternal. And so I do hope that these people that have lost their lives here, I do hope that their souls are resting in peace. And I do hope their souls, but of course, my head, I'm like, you know, putting my tinfoil hat on, thinking, are they trapping souls in here? Because let's talk about this, because it's very, very weird. And of course, this was voted on by you guys. We asked last week what you guys want to do for Halloween, since it is Halloween, and you guys picked this. And so let's talk. There's a lot of media on this, guys, too. I want to say before I even get into it, we know that when Hollywood picks up on something, that there's something there, right? Because the main law of the universe is consent. And so the darkness, you know, for us who are in the light, when we're talking about consent, we make it really clear with people, do I have your permission? You know, we're very clear. But the darkness, and I'm sure Jesse can probably talk on this more, they're going to find loopholes to get your consent slyly. And so we know that what they do, we know Hollywood is the 3-letter agency West, right? And so they take these stories and they make these stories to show us things as entertainment. And when we buy tickets and watch the movies, we're consenting. Yeah, they told us, you know, and they make stories about Atlantis, fictional stories about Atlantis. They're telling us Atlantis existed, but they're not telling us at the same time. And if we just choose not to research it, then oh well, they told us. So that's our consent. So there was a big movie in 2015 called The Sea of Trees, which was starring Matthew McConaughey and Naomi Watts. And it's about this forest. I actually have it on my list to watch off of Amazon. I was going to watch it, but I haven't done that yet. But there's lots of other books that have been released, bestsellers about this forest. So I just want to put that out there for you guys. Because I always encourage people to go and do their own research too into these things, because as interesting as they are, there's stuff for us to learn here. So where is this? So again, I was asked before we started filming. Obviously, I'm not Japanese, obviously. So if I mispronounce some of these names, I apologize. Please feel free to correct me in the comment section if you need to. So this forest is called Okigara, I believe. It's Okigahara, Okigara, which literally means the Sea of Trees in English translation, but in the street lingo, the cultural lingo would be a suicide forest. And I won't say the S word that much, guys, because we know that's a word they pick up on YouTube a lot. So that's the one time I'll say the S word. This is northwestern part of Mount Fuji. So that's the highest mountain in Japan. And this is the second highest volcano located in Asia. And I think I said, Morné was laughing at me. So people that know me off of YouTube know I'm terrible at technology, like terrible. I was saying before I started YouTube, I had to be taught how to copy and paste, because I'm really good in a library. I'm really good with a Dewey Decimal System, but computers not so much. So usually the pictures I send are not good. But if you can find one people know this mountain. Like, this mountain is very familiar. It's a cultural spot for Japan. It's about 100 kilometers or 62 miles southwest of Tokyo. And it can be seen on most clear days. Again, it's a cultural icon. It's one of Japan's 3 holy mountains, which I actually do want to look into deeper. I didn't for this case, but I actually do want to look into why they have 3 holy mountains. So if we have any friends that are watching from Japan, let us know in the comment section, because I actually kind of want to go into that a little bit deeper. Now, this is what's interesting to me. If you've been watching me for a while, every time I cover a case where a location is either put on a historical registry by the country, or any type of marking comes in and like they mark it off governmentally, the globalists come in and mark it off, I say that's a huge red flag. And so on June 22nd, 2013, this forest was placed on the World Heritage List. Now, this forest was created from a volcano that erupted out of Mount Fuji in 864 CE. So that's why I'm talking about this mountain. Now, again, this is a holy mountain for Japan. So there's obviously something very spiritual here going on. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely coming from, and it's a volcano. You said so.
Yes,
it was a volcano that
this is
erupted,
second
and from the volcano, the forest was born.
Yes, Okigara Forest was born, which is going to give it there's going to be some differences with this forest compared to other forests that aren't formed by volcano. Now, again, the last time that this mountain erupted was between 1707 and 1708, but it wasn't enough to do much damage. But it is still active. So if you guys are living over close to this area, just FYI, it's still active, okay? Just so you guys know. And I don't know if the controllers can control that. I have no idea. Nothing surprises me anymore. So just letting you guys know. Now, with that being said, I don't want people to live in fear, but ignorance is bliss sometimes, but knowledge protects. Okay, so this was created by hardened lava after the eruption in 864 CE. Now, it is 30 square kilometers. 12 square kilometers is how big this forest is. Now, this forest is extremely dense. Also, something super interesting. Now, I'm going to say this. I've always lived in cities. And even when I'm in India, I'm in a small town, but India is just loud anyway. Shanti can tell you all about that. India is just loud. So I'm super comfortable with because I live in cities. So when I'm in a small town and it's quiet at night, it kind of makes me nervous because I'm so used to just hearing stuff going on, sirens going off, all that kind of stuff. But this, from what I understand, I've never been to this forest, but from what I was reading, the lava rock absorbs any sound. So I heard another researcher say there's that saying, if a tree falls and no one's around, does it make a sound? Basically in this forest, can you even hear trees falling? Because the lava just absorbs all sound, which gives it a very eerie, I would imagine a very eerie sensation. We know in yoga, Om is the vibration of God from yoga. That's why it's called Om. And if you go and sit, if I go to the North Georgia mountains and away from cars where my cell phone's not working and I just sit out there by myself quietly, I will start to hear the humming of Om coming from nature. But in this forest, there's nothing because the lava absorbs it. This forest is also extremely dense. And so there are hiking trails in this forest, but the government is very strict. Now, we can talk about why this is, because obviously I don't think every single government official is a bad person or in the group. I think there are some government officials, just like doctors, just like teachers, that get into their job because they want to do good, right? So I don't know, but we can talk about the conspiracies around the trails. The government really wants hikers to stay on trail because it's so dense, because there's no sound. If you go off trail, you will probably get lost and die in the wilderness. You're going to get turned around backwards. And a lot of people say that the hikers that try to go off trail will take colored ribbon. So you'll see a bunch of colored ribbon so they can mark their way through the forest so they know how to get back. Kind of like Hansel and Gretel when they would drop the stones and they drop the bread and the birds ate the bread. That's kind of what they're doing. And so there's also in the western edge of Okigara, there is there's tunnels that in the winter fill with ice. So during more feudal times of Japan, we're going to kind of get into the history of the feudal times with this forest. The poorer people would actually use this forest almost as refrigeration for their families. They would take not saying that the wealthy families had refrigerators. Of course, we can talk about that with Tartaria, because who knows with Tartaria. But the poorer families were utilizing this forest at one point. There is also... we'll get to the sign later. So according to Japanese mythology, this forest is home to ghosts and demons. All right. And so that's what I'm saying with, there's a picture. It's just very dense. I mean, if any of our viewers have been to this forest, I want to know your experience. But so when we look at ghost, what is a ghost? Well, ghost is the spirit of someone who once lived, where a demon is a fallen angel. So that's my question, I guess, when Stephanie comes back, is we can look at this and say, are they trapping souls that commit suicide? Are they trapping them in there? Now, many people say that the spirits will actually call people in to the forest to commit the act. Okay, and we can talk more about that after we get through the whole presentation, because this is going to get into psychology and why it's important to heal our own wounds and to observe our own thoughts so we don't become a slave to our thoughts. So in the 19th century, so the 1800s, this was a location spot for poor families to abandon their very young, very old, or very sick when the family could no longer afford to pay for them. And this is actually a practice in Japan called ODYSEE, I hope I'm saying that right. And as my camera almost flipped, a long time ago, I covered on my channel, we have these bridges all over, I think it's all over the world. They're called crybaby bridges, where people hear ghosts of babies crying off the bridge. And I covered this a long time ago. And the history behind this, especially in the United States, was at one point in our culture, if women got pregnant before they were married, that was a huge heartache on them, because first of all, this was a time in history where women weren't working, and so they would have no way of supporting their child without a husband. And then since their purity had been compromised, finding a husband would have become difficult with having a child. And so a lot of women, once the baby was born, would go throw the baby off the bridge to get rid of the child. So that's why we have a lot of crybaby bridges. Now, so when I read this about what they used to do with this forest in Japan, this is something that's a phenomenon that's not just Japanese culture. And sometimes I think the Japanese get a bad rap because they have a lot of these, like we have the samurai, you know, the honorable samurai suicides, all that kind of stuff we're going to talk about. But this stuff was also done in the Western world too. You know, we have to kind of, you know, there's a famous quote that I'm going to paraphrase. I can't remember exactly how it is, where history is like a foreign country and they do things. History is like a foreign country. They do things differently there. And so before we judge too harshly, I think we have to understand the cultural ramifications of what was going on. But when I saw that, I was like, poor grandma. Could you imagine grandma just like driving grandma up to a forest and putting her outside and being like, bye, bye. You know, like, I just can't imagine, like, you know, wow. Or your sick uncle, like, dude, we can't afford this anymore. We're going to have to take you to Okigara because, like, I cannot, like, do you, I mean, I know they didn't have cars in the 19th century, but do you, like, look in the rear view mirror as you're driving off? Like, I don't, like, how does this work? You know, like, how did this work? So there was already, it's crazy. So there were already a lot of deaths happening in this forest before it got called the S word forest. So this is actually the third most popular spot in the world to remove yourself. The first being the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, which there are amazing documentaries on that, which we can talk about that too, with back with Stephanie to see what's going on with that bridge. And then there's another, the Nanjing Yangtze River Bridge is another place where people will jump. The most common ways for people to remove themselves in this forest is hanging or drug overdose. I think I would take the latter. I can't imagine. I mean, that's just an awful thing to have to think about, like what you would do. But I think hanging would be pretty brutal. So I would probably choose the latter, but I'm not ever going to do that. So just my opinion on the matter. And so in the 1950s, the forest claimed more than 500 people. So they estimate, in my research, some estimated about 30 people a year, where some people estimated up to 100 people a year. I think we're going to talk about why the number isn't clear in a minute. 80 bodies were pulled out in 2002. 105 bodies were pulled out in 2003. 200 people attempted in 2010, and only 54 completed the act. This often happens.
I'm interested there. Sorry to interject there. The ones that didn't get it right, the ones that actually are alive to tell the tale, what story do they tell about that?
I know. I couldn't find any.
Like the voices are calling them in or something like that.
I'm just Now, if you watch the Golden Gate Bridge documentary, that they do talk to people who survived it. Like there are people who survived the jump that they do interview. I couldn't find a whole lot of information on the survivors, and it might be because the culture there is more closed off when it comes to that than maybe the Western culture. There were a few things in Japanese, and again, I don't speak Japanese, so so if we have any viewers that do speak Japanese and can translate for us, or send us our way, because that would be very fascinating. That would be very fascinating.
Yeah, I would be very interested to hear a couple of accounts of survivors, because I would like to know what they say. I mean, what you're saying is apparently there's voices and spirits that call them in and get them to do that.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to know who lures them in, how, you know, and
what was their mindset going into it.
Yeah.
So, well, what's interesting is most of these acts happen in March at the end of the fiscal year in Japan. And when I read this, like my heart, I wanted to cry because I think we all going through, every single person in this world, unless you're like part of the 1%, knows what it's like to stress about money. And it just gave me such a picture of what these controllers have done to us. You know, the fact that you think your life is not valuable because of money, of glorified paper that's not even backed by gold. You know, but I know we've all been there. I mean, in 2020, the rate of this in the United States at least went way up, of the people doing this act. I'm trying to be careful about not using the S word too much, but and so like when I read that, like I just wanted to cry, because I just wanted to hug all those people and just be like, you're not your net worth. You're not your bank account. But I understand it. Like it makes me emotional even thinking about it now. I understand it, especially if you have a family to raise. I understand. And I have my dog. Like I don't have children. I don't have to worry about their health bills or their education or clothing and braces and sports and all the things that it costs to raise a family. I don't have, but I know that panicky feeling of what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I know for a lot of, especially I think for men, especially, and I can't, I'm just assuming that men being technically in our society being like the head of the household, like if something were to happen, and a lot of times when money situations happen, it's out of the person's control. It's just something, just the unexpected happens, you know, the company lays people off. We have a global lockdown, you know, and then to be a man.
But Bryce, it's not just that. It's, you know, we're born into this debt culture. Mm-hmm. So to buy a house, you go into debt. Mm-hmm. So to buy a car, you go into debt. To buy furniture, oftentimes you'd go into debt if you're just starting out in life. Yeah. So we, you know, if we look at that, that's kind of how the whole financial system has been structured to begin with.
And they keep us in debt too. They keep us
working.
Yeah. I mean, they keep upping the ante too. Like I know in the 1960s here, 50s here in the United States, you could have like a 4-person family where the wife stayed at home, didn't work. The husband could work like a factory job. He could afford a house, a car, and to send his kids to school.
Yeah, exactly. And now, you know, this whole inflation thing, it's really to keep us controlled. I mean, we talk about the whole control thing, but you know, there again, you know, some people will argue that the human being needs something to work for. So as long as there's something, a reason for him to get up in the morning and go and to his job, you know, because he has to pay his bills for his home, that's what keeps us going, type thing. You know, but that's a whole debate for a different day, I reckon. But it's, you know, my point is this whole debt culture thing. We've got to loan money from the bank all the time. You know, what happened to the barter trading system? You know, when we're looking at our indigenous cultures, everything was done on the bartering. I don't know if you guys call it bartering, but you know, it's trading. So so it's all done on a bartering system. Very interesting, because that you know, money would certainly be. I mean, you look at the biggest suicide rate on this planet, and it has to do with money, finances, stock markets crashing, people not being able to feed their children. left homeless, whatever.
It's heartbreaking. I just like, and I just, the human life is just so much. And, but think, you know, I was, as you were saying that, Shanti, I agree. Like, I think as human beings, we do like to work, but when we're working on our dharma, when we're working on ourselves, that's the work. So
yes, exactly.
The darkness cannot create, they can only invert. And so they've created another system outside of ourselves to get us to work for, so we don't work on ourselves. So I see where that manipulation is happening. And I just like want to, like, if anybody is watching right now and you are in a place right now financially where you feel like you're at your wit's end, just contact us. Just don't, you're not alone. Don't do anything stupid, because you are literally worth, there's no price. Your life, there's no price tag on your life. You are priceless. Like, you please don't fall into, and think about that. If the head of a family like offs themselves, so then you've got that energy that now the rest of the family is without that person. They're mourning the loss of that person. They have the bills on top of it. So it creates this domino effect of sadness and low vibration and heartache. And so of course the controllers love that. That's what they feed off of, you know? So if you're someone that is struggling with ideation when it comes to, and I think we've all been at a place in our lives where we've thought about that at some point. I think most of us have had those dark nights of the soul. And I'm just going to tell you right now, don't give in to the controllers. Don't give in to them. You are so much, just reach out to me. I can say reach out to Shanti, Morné, any of us, because you are worth so much more than that. You are a fractal of God. Yeah. You are not, you Absolutely. Are, and I think that the controllers are afraid of us because we are that fractal of God. And so that's why they entrap us into these systems. All right. So, let's look at the first reported suicide, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I just really want to put out I want to put this out because if any of the, really indoctrinated religious people are watching right now, I'm going to explain something to you that's going to sound real familiar to what Christianity is built on, and that's Jesus's death and crucifixion, right? So let's talk about this, because this is interesting, because we see a lot of Christians will say, oh, Buddhists are evil, they're going to hell. Well, let's talk about what happened in this forest in 1340 AD with a Buddhist monk called Shahoki. I hope I'm saying that right. It's Shohkai. So if anybody wants to look this story up, Shahoki, Shohkai. He was a Buddhist monk who participated in a religious ritual called Naiwojo, Nyujoh, Naiwojo. Again, I'm probably saying that wrong. This is a particular religious ritual or rite done in the Buddhist tradition, or at least it was done then in the Buddhist tradition. So what is this? This is a crucifixion, but a different crucifixion than the one we see with Jesus. This is a slow death, okay? So this included intense prayer while fasting inside of a cave. So basically, from what I understood from my research, the monk volunteered himself to go into one of the caves in Okigara where he would not eat anything. He basically starved himself to death, all while praying. And this was done as a way to save the people from their sins. So this monk in 1340 gave his life to try to save the people from their sins. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? So this is why we judge not, lest ye be judged. You can't point if you point one finger at someone else, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. So that's why I want a lot of the Christian people to understand that this idea of self-sacrifice or crucifixion in a way, even though he wasn't nailed to a cross, it wasn't a blood ritual, is the same concept that the Christians follow with Jesus, okay? So that was very eye-opening to me in that sense. Now, I personally, in my personal opinion, don't think anyone can pay for your karma, because I don't see that as exactly. The real Yahshua taught that your karma isn't, when something bad happens to you, it's not God punishing you. There's a lesson to be learned. It's friction. And I use this example a lot. Like when you have a match, so we all know what a match looks like. Everybody in the world knows what a match looks like. Everything that match needs to light itself is in that match. It's all there. It's in the match. When you buy the match, you pull that match out. Everything it needs to be a light is there, but it can't light on its own, can it? It has to be struck against the matchbook to ignite the light. That's friction. That's friction. So anytime something bad happens to you that causes that friction, that's an opportunity for you to strike your match. If everything, my friend Cindy said it brilliantly, without suffering, there would be no mystic. Because we can only have a mystic if there's questioning. And without suffering, there's no questioning. Questioning is what brings us to a point. Oh, yeah. Well, let's talk about that. That's so sad because there is the samurai. It's called seppuku. Again, I hope I'm saying that right. seppuku, seppuku. And this is the samurai's honorable suicide. And this started in the feudal system. So yes. And I know I had heard at one point with education in Japan, it's like so intense that like if a kid is sick, you can't go to school, the parent will go for the kid to take the notes to bring it home. And a lot of times kids who are falling behind in school will end up offing themselves. I mean, this is intense, you guys. And you're worth so much more than that. But when we talk about the role of karma and all this, and sometimes, and I say that very honestly, I think most people, at least at one point in their life, would have probably considered it, just thought about it, because things were so bad for them. But when those moments, when it's the darkest in your life, it's like I said earlier, you can't feel powerful until you've at one point been powerless. Because we're in a polarized world, right? I was just reading this morning before coming on about how with the feminine aspect of divinity, there is the darkness and the light, because we see this polarity. And so that's one thing, why we're doing the shadow work challenge again. Like, we cannot fix the situation with the controllers that's going on until we fix ourselves. It's our own wounds that is allowed to continue. That's our own, because of our own wounds, we've lost our power. No, we gave our power away over time. And so we have to go first and correct ourselves. Because, it's like, if we could arrest every single one of them. We can arrest all of them, clear out every single, I'm trying to be careful what I say, clear out every single place where these activities were located. We can clean them out. But if we don't fix ourselves, how much time before it starts again? Right? And so that's why when we try to sit around and wait for someone to do it for us, like we're looking with this sahoku or somebody paying our debt for us, our debt, it's not even a debt, it's just work for us, then we're never going to evolve. We're not going to find that friction, and we're not going to find that light. I know so many people in my life, and I'm sure everybody can think of someone in their life who have gone through hell and back in their lives. And they're probably the kindest people you know. They're probably the most wise people you know. And it's because they went through those obstacles and they came out the other side. I hope that makes sense. I hope that we got clarity on that. So I want everybody to understand that when bad things happen to you, God's not punishing you. It's just karma. It's just action and reaction. And it's just a way for you to rebalance yourself, as Shanti so beautifully said. It's a way for you to go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, Ram Dass says it this way, like when something bad happens to me in my life that I've projected and caused, okay, interesting. I need to go back now and I need to heal. Okay, thank you. I know, Shanti, I've said this before. It was like, a year ago when you had someone break in. And I remember you said after you were chasing them out of your house and you were stepping on broken glass, you said, and I'm paraphrasing, you said, I stopped and said, what are you trying to teach me right now? And I thought, that is so amazing, because that's someone who's walking the walk. When she's practicing what she preaches, when the most intense moment, she stopped and said, what are you trying to teach me right now? What are you? And I've told people that when pain comes about, just be like, okay, I acknowledge you, pain. I acknowledge you, arthritis. I acknowledge you, depression. I see you, suicidal thoughts. What are you trying to teach me right now?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing was my gratitude that I was safe. Thank you that I'm safe. What do I need to learn through this? Absolutely. And that was, and with that attitude, with that perspective, I guess, honestly, within about 12 o'clock the next day, I had guys in here fixing everything. They were so helpful. Normally in a sleepy little coastal town, you wait 10 days before anything occurs. But by 12 o'clock, they were done. They were here. The community was incredibly supportive. And it actually happened exactly a year ago, 27th of
Wow.
last year. Yeah.
Wow. Well, isn't that,
And
I laugh because India is the same way. I learned real fast in India when I needed water. I was out and then the water guy was like, okay, madam, yes, 5 minutes. 5 minutes was 2 days. So I laugh because that sounds like in India. You just bobble your head and go, okay.
yeah, bobbing your head, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, madam. All right, I'll see you in 2 days then. All right, I've learned now. I learned. So let's look at that. Okay, so I was out of water. So I learned through that situation that I needed to call the water boy when I was like 3 days out of water, right? Like, so these obstacles come where we learn. And yeah, so like if you are in that dark place where you're considering removing yourself, just journal. What is the darkness? What's that I love Simon and Garfunkel, The Sound of Silence. When, hello darkness, my old friend, I've come to speak with you again. So when that in that silence, that sound of silence. So when you these bless these people and with the demons, the calling of demons, and I know Jesse can speak on this more because Shanti and I've talked with Jesse off camera about this, and this was very eye-opening for me. In my opinion, your wounds, your the things you struggle with in your life, your resistance, which is different for every person, those are holy, those are sacred, because that's what's going to bring you closer to the divine. So it's not something to run from. Yeah. And but the demons, the darkness will use that as a loophole to try to manipulate you.
Yeah.
So if
you're not aware, the whole thing is just being aware. Being aware is key of everything. So, and you've got to trust your intuition. That's the thing. And what we do in the shadow work is we learn to trust our intuition. We get stronger, more confident, more. You don't have to go on an intuitive course to open up your intuition. No, you don't need to do that. You see, that's where
born with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's already there. You just got to see what you've been doing to block it off. So It's not about opening up your intuition. It's always there. You've got to just dissolve that which is between you and your intuition. So that's what we do. And then the more we do that, the stronger it comes through and the stronger we become who we authentically meant to be in any event.
Yeah. And I think that especially for women, because we know the intuitive side comes from the feminine energy of both men, because both men and women have both the energies in them. And, look at women, for example, women are usually highly intuitive as mothers. My mother used to smell it in the air before we were sick, women just know when something's going on with their babies, but what they've labeled as crazy. They're emotional, they're crazy, and so we run from that. And you're right. I love that, Shanti, when you could start, and that's the practice of yoga. Shanti and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the Solutions channel about being the watcher. When you come to a place and I try to tread lightly because I'm not telling you when you're the watcher, it's not like you shouldn't experience emotions. Not experience emotion means you're a psychopath. Of course, feel the emotions. That's the human side of you. But while you're feeling them, also observe them. Because the body is just the expression. The soul, guess what? You can't kill the soul. The soul's never going to die. So what does the soul have to lose? And I think a lot of times people confuse their ego with their gut feeling. And Tamara says it great. She says, how do you know the difference between fear, which comes from the ego, and your gut? Well, that's easy. Fear makes sense. Sometimes your gut feeling doesn't make sense intellectually, right? And so I'm wondering if something's going on in this forest, with that being said, where, we would have to go way back and start with the eruption of the volcano. What happened there? And was that a demonic lock? And so when people have these wounds or have these fears, are these demons targeting people and luring them in? Because we know they feed off of loosh. We know they feed off of this.
What for me, what I would think, and that's what my intuition is telling me around this, is that obviously the eruption of the volcano had something to do with this. It feels to me like it's sitting on a portal or an energy ley line of sorts that has that energy trapped energy. It's trapped energy that's there, and it's creating like a pivotal frequency there, if you will. So it definitely will erupt. And then, of course, it creates the forests and what have you. And then it gives an outlet for that energy to play itself out. Now, who and what's behind it is very difficult to say, but I do feel that's what's happening there. that the eruption of the volcano is really because of the ley lines and the situation, the portal, something like that, that has now come to a pivotal point, erupts itself, expresses itself, and creates this. And remember, any kind of negative entity, there's always a lot of deception, and it's always often very beautiful. So the forest is beautiful, right? Gosh,
Yeah.
my laptop is going to die soon. I'm on load shedding here. So the forest is beautiful, right? But so it kind of lures you in. And that's often, it's almost like if you look at the whole gingerbread, not the gingerbread man, the Hansel and Gretel story, you're lured in by the chocolate, you're lured in by the sweetness, the beauty. And then, and that's exactly where you've got to have your intuition, because your intuition will tell you, if someone's standing there luring me in, I will not consent to that, because it's all about consent. The minute you say, okay, yes, I'm coming, you've consented.
Yeah.
So, I think what I was thinking as well, I would really like to do a total show on just what the word consent actually means, because and how we give our consent away, and how we actually choose not to participate in certain things. So by saying yes, and by following this, whatever it is that's luring you in, you consenting.
Yes. Well, now I think too that when people understand their own wounds and where they're easily manipulated, then they can put up better boundaries. I mean, I forgot to tell you this, and when I said the numbers might not be accurate, because I don't know if they can actually find all the bodies. Because in 1970, since 1970, the Japanese government has established an annual body search that consists of volunteers and police. So once a year, police and volunteers try to go together to scan through the forest to see what bodies they can find. So I don't even know if they can actually even give you a number for how many bodies are lost in that forest. I mean, there was one picture I sent you, Morné, that just showed a row of shoes of people they had found. At one point, there was a YouTuber, I think back in like 2015, 2016. That he showed like the actual rotting bodies, and went into the forest, and people, it's just to find. And I think some people go there with the interest to see the forest. And this is just my intuition saying that once they get there, the forest starts to mess with their minds too.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's that whole energy.
Yeah. So if you know your wounds, if you know where you have wounds, then you're better protected, because they can say,
absolutely,
nope, you're not going to touch that wound. It's my sacred wound, and you can't use it.
Yeah.
You do not have my permission to manipulate that.
Because any kind of deception or manipulation is obviously going to go, they're looking for our weak spots. So they're going to go for the weak spot. And if you understand what it is, and you just go, no, thank you.
I mean, look at like just on a very physical plane level, just physically, not even emotionally. Like, look what they do with these what they call the honeycomb traps, or whatever they're called, where they trap people in because of their lust for a woman or something. So the controllers,
honeypot, they're known as honeypots.
That's it. You can tell I haven't been. You can definitely tell I have not been to one of these islands, because I can't even remember the name of it. But they'll use men's lust for power over women, and then they got them. And now they can manipulate. So the demons are doing that with your own emotions, so your own weaknesses. So if you have suicide ideation, if you have abandonment issues, betrayal, the demons are going to use that as a loophole, which for me, in my opinion, that's sacred, because that's how you're going to find your friction. So in this exercise and learning this, we all have to learn what our weaknesses are, learn where our work lies. And you're as long as you're in a human body, you're going to have something you're working on. And you just put up boundaries to the darkness, and you say, no.
Yeah,
you're not going to use this, because this is my work, and I that's why I'm a human, is to work on my work, and this is between God and me. This is between my creator and me, and the light inside of me, and you have no part in this. And so I think the more we learn that, the less power these demons and these controllers are going to have over us.
Absolutely, I fully agree. And I think, Brycey, and I'm on load shedding, guys, and I see my laptop is warning me that I'm on low battery. But you and I will see each other on Wednesday again.
Yes. Let's finish Tartaria. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we will see each other on Wednesday on Solutions, okay? Later on tonight at 6 o'clock my time, which is an hour from now, I've got Carlisle Studio on again. Awesome, Carlisle, all sassy and funky and healthy and very wise. So guys, tune in to Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa in about an hour. And in the meantime, I want to just say thank you so much, Bryce. Sorry, I don't mean to go. I'm just looking for. There's actually this comment I wanted to put here, which I think is true. And no, not that one. No, we do, my dear Gipper. We definitely do. So please don't speak nonsense here. If you watch our shows, we most definitely talk about that. So I don't
we know where those children are going, and that's why we're saying you have to work on yourself. If you want to fix that situation with the children, work on yourself.
Exactly. So we do speak about it. So I'm not actually going to show that comment. Sorry, that one actually came about accidentally. I was not meant to show that one, which has now disappeared. But anyway, yeah, everyone who knows anything about this channel, you know this channel was born on exposing child trafficking, right?
Yeah.
Our first interview guest was Jessie Zabotar, and still is a weekly guest. And if anything, what we do is we expose that. We've also have a channel for the overcomers.
Yep.
A lot of people that have since shared their story on this platform, where there's a lot of survivors who've been through that, and you are doing a heck of a lot at the moment to work with the children. So, yeah. I agree. But rather, when you come and make comments like that on this channel, really be sure of what we're about before you.
And it's one thing knowing those facts, but those facts don't matter if you're not doing anything about it.
Absolutely. So we are we're all doing this together. Absolutely. This is and in order for us to heal collectively, we have to do our own inner healing work. Yep. And that's what the 30-day challenge is about. So I look forward to having you there, seeing you all there. Gip, I hope you're going to be on that 30-day challenge.
Yeah, and join the Signal support group if you guys want to. I'll post it on my community tab at some point today, the link again. So you can talk with each other privately. It's all private. So, if you need help, you got other friends all over the world that are going to be there to support you and lift you up and help you get through this. So we got this, guys. We're all walking each other home. We got this. This is easy. This is what human.
Please just block this person. Seriously. Enough already. Gosh.
We came to Earth to human together. And so we're going to turn the word human into a verb. We're humaning. And that's what we're doing. And we got this.
Indeed, we have. Okay, guys, love you all. Take good care of yourselves. I'll see you again at 6 o'clock or an hour from now with Carlisle. We'll see you again on Wednesday with Bryce. We'll see you tomorrow with Tom Althouse. So look forward to seeing you. Got a busy week. Yay. And we got Australia on Friday again, Kerry Saint, who talks about the forced adoptions. Very, very, I really want to say, guys, please follow that. Kerry Saint is a Australian on our Focus on Australia channel. And it's amazing because she was one of these forced adoptees, right? And the stories that they tell these kids, and she was put into child slavery, all of these horrific things going on. So, okay, my battery's going to die now. Please watch Friday. Okay. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.